What is paint correction? Let's talk about it. Clear coat on the top. Green means go, guys. That means we can cut, we can make sure that we can remove defects. Base coat, you don't want to get that far. And primer, you've really messed up if you've gone that far. Paint correction. When we've got swirls and we've got some scratches in the paint, very light scratches, let's not go deep, right? And then we got a guy that gets really mad at us because we make social media content and upset him online, and we've got a deep scratch. See the surface of that? Swirl, scratches, deep scratch. Paint correction is removing a layer of damaged surface. Now, we've corrected most of it, but we still have that scratch left because that scratch was deeper. So we need to go further to remove that scratch. Now, we can see with this example very clearly that scratch does not go all the way through the clear coat. But to get that scratch out, we need to remove that much clear coat. That's like 40% of what's available for clear coat. And keep in mind the paint system, when you measure it with a paint mic, only about 40% of that is clear coat. So you've got all this stuff right here that you can't actually play with. You can only play with the clear coat. And then when you're dealing with cars that are single stage that don't actually have clear coat, all you have is the color to play with. You don't want to get to primer. And you don't even really want to get close to primer because you can get ghosting. And you can end up starting to see the primer through the base, and that's not good. So paint correction is removing your clear coat. It is taking microscopic layers of the clear coat that are damaged and replacing them. Now, does that mean that that's going to stay permanent? No. Does that mean that that doesn't need maintenance or proper maintenance? Absolutely not. If you paint correct a vehicle and then don't maintain it properly, you're going to end up, for example, you use brushes, you're going to end up with the same scenario you had before. So damage in paint is a behavioral problem. It is lack of proper maintenance. When you put a ceramic coating on a car, it's not that the ceramic coating's on the car that you need to maintain better. It's because you need to maintain better if you want a good finish on the vehicle. Maintain it poorly, I don't care. The ceramic coating will still do what it's supposed to do, which is make the maintenance easier. If you damage the surface and you want the surface to look fresh and clean again, you have to do another paint correction. As you can see, that deeper scratch is starting to go away. And that's where we get into multi-step paint correction. Multi-step meaning I could sand this surface first, and in sanding the surface, remove that scratch or remove the layer that that scratch is in, and then come through and compound and polish, which some would call a 3-step. I just call it a multi-step. We have 2-step correction. That's really just explaining it to the client so they understand I have to do this 3, 4, 5 times because those are pretty deep. The swirls, easy to remove. They're usually on the surface, unless there's a whole bunch of them and they're layered on top of each other. The scratches are the ones that you have to have some skill set to remove, because the scratches you don't want to focus on. You want to focus on the panel. If you focus on just that scratch, what you end up with is removing just a section of that clear and thinning out that spot, which creates high spots on the either side of it. As you come back through with your pad, you will end up working on just those spots, creating a ton of heat, and that risk of burn through gets higher when you do that. So paint correction is absolutely a skill set, especially with modern day paints. There is not a lot of paint to work with. We've got 4 mils, 124 microns worth of paint to wrestle with, and if you make a wrong step or you don't properly do that service, there is a possibility you won't be able to actually complete the service. And you can't do it multiple times. You can do it maybe 2, maybe 3 times if you're going ham. If it's minor, sure, you can do it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times if it's just minor swirls. And this is why maintenance is so crucial. You shouldn't need to get to this step over and over and over again. The days of buffing a car every year to remove swirls and scratches are gone. It's not a thing anymore because there's just not enough paint. The paint isn't as strong as it used to be. It's waterborne paint, so we don't have lacquer paints. We don't have strong paints anymore. Most of the paint is pretty weak, but it looks great. It looks great when done right. So that is what paint correction is. You don't want to do it over and over and over again because there's only so much clear coat to work with. And when you get into base coat, it looks different. It's going to look ugly. You're going to have a section with clear and a section with base, and it's going to have two different colors to it. So that's paint correction, the process. Now, what is it in theory? The theory of paint correction is if I have a bunch of scratches and a bunch of swirls on a surface, and light comes in to hit it, instead of hitting it and absorbing within the color, it's going to hit and refract the direction of all these scratches and swirls, making that light disperse so our eyes don't absorb the color well. And if that happens, we're not getting true color. And that's why we call it paint correction, because when we take that damaged surface and we flatten that surface out, don't cut your finger, don't cut your finger, and we get a true surface, the flatter the better, depending on how many steps of paint correction you're wanting to pay for. The flatter that surface, the better, because what will happen is the light will hit it. And picture we've got like hundreds of rays of light, right? Boom, 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 boom. Or, you know, your primary colors, Roy G. Biv, your primary and secondary colors. Those hit this. And the colors that are supposed to absorb now. They don't refract. This is why blacks go gray when they're all scratched up. Blues look light blue. Reds look almost oxidized or faded. It's because the light is not absorbing properly. And that's why we call it paint correction, because we correct it, or color correction, because we correct the surface so that it can absorb the paint or absorb the light, and it can actually create the true color that it was intended to create. It's honestly fascinating when you start to study it. I'm still, I would say, an amateur in the theory of paint correction, but I know quite a bit and enough to get myself in trouble. That is paint correction explained. That is the theory as well as the action of paint correcting. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to email me, jonathan@dirtytodreamy.com, or comment on the video that you're watching this on, and I'll happily make more videos. I may even play with clay some more if you'd like.